In this tutorial, we're going to create the interface that appears on the iPhone ad. I'm going to start by importing a file in the zip folder under 3-iPhoneAnim. It's called iPhone horizontal F MP4. I'll open that up. I'm going to drag that file from the Project tab down to the new composition icon at the bottom of the project window. And now the phone is in its own composition. The phone has a finite amount of time. It rotates and goes to a horizontal position. We need to have that horizontal position static for 30 seconds. To make that change, I'm going to go to Composition, Composition Settings, and I'm going to change the duration to 40 seconds. With the timeline selected, I'll hit minus on the keyboard until I see the new addition to the timeline that extends from 0 to 40 seconds. I need to have that last frame for the duration of the rest of the video. I'll right-click on the selected file in the timeline, and I'll choose Time, Enable Time Remapping. 2 keyframes appear underneath the file. If I put my cursor over the edge of the file itself, I can drag it now to extend it for the duration of the 40 seconds. And if I were to pull my playback into the timeline, the last frame of that animation, the horizontal frame, is static, and that's where we want to begin. I'm going to put my playback head at that second key frame that appears under time remapping. And I'm going to split the layer there. I'm going to go to Edit, Split, Layer. And then I'm going to select the shorter clip now at clip number 2 in the timeline. And I'm going to extend that edge out to about 12 seconds. Essentially, they are overlapping. Next, I'm going to turn off that second clip. And with the first clip now selected, that first layer, I'm going to edit out the interface of the iPhone. I'm going to click on the pen tool. The quick key is G. And with that tool, I'm going to go around, just as in Illustrator or Photoshop, and I'm going to create a Bezier path. And as long as that layer was selected, it will now begin to introduce a layer mask. To refine my edits, just like in Photoshop or Illustrator, if I go to the pen tool and left mouse click on it, there is the Convert Vertex tool. And in those other apps, as in After Effects now, I can go in and I can edit this to get what I want. I can hit V on the keyboard, and I can use my arrows on the middle keypad to change the position. Once I have the edit, I want the opposite. I want the outside part of the phone, not the screen. The screen is what we're going to replace with an animation process. I'll open up the clip now that I've finished my masking, and I'll open up the mask effects. You're going to see next to the word mask 1, the word add, and then the word inverted. I'm going to click on the checkbox in front of the word inverted. And now we've got the center of the iPhone hidden to add our animation to. If we look at the final ad, we can see that there is a button shape here. We're going to import that button shape that I've provided you and animate it in this fashion. So right in here, we have an interface, and then we're going to animate that button. I'll return to my masked content. I'm now going to turn on the second clip, the shorter one that is below the one that's on top. And now we can see that the interface appears there. So we're going to set our playback head now at roughly 4 seconds. I'm going to import the button shape. inside the folder named 2-pad screen, you'll see nasabutton.png. I'm going to drag it onto screen. I'm going to drag it so that it begins at the location of my playback head, which is 4 seconds. I want to start out with this roughly the size of the buttons that appear on the interface. I'll hit S on the keyboard and I'll start to scale this down. You'll probably find that 25% will do the job adequately. I'm going to place it below the Apple TV logo. And if I wanted to be perfectly in line with the buttons that are on the same path here, I would hit Command R and I would drag a guide down and put it just on top of those other buttons. That would allow me to position my button in the same horizontal line. Now, I want to have an effect on this, so the first effect I'm going to put on would be under Effects, Stylize, and Glow. And the first thing I'll do at the top of the Effects channel is choose, instead of Color Channels, Alpha Channel. I'm next going to go down to where the color bars appear with the eyedroppers. I'll change the top white one to an orange. I'm kind of looking at the orange that appears in this icon here. Basic design requires us to repeat color, shape, texture. Once I've got the color I want, I'm going to go to where it says Glow Operation, about halfway down that effects box. I'm going to change it from Add to Normal. The glow will now appear on the outside of the button. Now that I've got it on the outside, I'm going to return to the top and I'm going to increase the radius to about 65, and then I'll increase the glow intensity, making it brighter, and I think I'll make that maybe 3. Now that might be a little over top as far as the parameter of it, so I'm going to reduce the radius now that it's a little brighter, and I guess I'll drop down to about 25. Now that I have the effects I want, I'm going to animate it. My playback head is at 4 seconds, and I'll want this to animate for 2 seconds to go from this point to the middle and make it larger. So I'm going to hit P for position with that clip selected, and then Shift S for scale. I'll drop the first keyframes for both of those functions at second number 4. I'll move 2 seconds. At 6 seconds, I'll drag the button into the middle of the interface, and I'm going to scale it up. And I'm going to make it 50%. One last effect I want to put on this button to give it a little bit more of a 3D quality is to add a drop shadow. I'll go to Effect, Perspective, and Drop Shadow. I want this to point down towards the lower right-hand corner. So first thing I'll do is increase the distance, maybe make it 20, and then with the little dial I can direct it down towards the lower right-hand corner. I'm going to soften it. I'll make it about 15. And now I'm going to preview what I have so far. I'm going to set my render bar with the first blue rectangle of the render bar at the beginning of the animation. I'll put the playback head just past 6 seconds, and I'll hit N on the keyboard to preview what I have within that parameter. Tapping the space bar, this is what we should see at this point. Now we're going to extend the button shape because it has to be on screen for another 2 seconds. So with my playback head at 6 seconds, I'm going to click in the corner of the timeline and I'll make it 8 seconds. And I'll drag the button shape out to that point. Before I continue, I'm going to color code the animation of the phone clips to a yellow. So I'm going to change the color. I'll shift select them. I'll go over to the blue box to the left of the number. Here it's 2 and 3 in our layer window. And I'll left mouse click and I'll choose to make that yellow. And I'm doing that so this tutorial perhaps would be more clear if these clips were represented with different colors. I'm going to select the button clip, we just animated it, and I'm going to drag it down below the first yellow iPhone clip, the one that begins at 4 seconds. So I can click and drag with the icon next to the name and move it down in order that way. Or if I chose to, I could have used the Command key and the open bracket. All the elements that we will add from here on have to be below that layer number 1 now. By doing that, that one that begins at second number 4 is at the top. Everything else we introduce will be at that point. I'm going to go to my project window again by hitting Command 0, or I could have gone to Window and I could have chosen Project. We're going to bring in an image named NASA Site. And this is also in 2-pad screen, the folder provided in the zip file you received. I'll hit Open. I'm going to drag it onto screen. And I'm going to start this clip at second number 6. So I'll punch in 600 in my timeline, and I'll begin my clip there. This also has to be down below the yellow iPhone MP4, which is now number 2. I'm going to move it down below that one as well. As we drag through the timeline now, we can see that the button comes on, and then when it comes to rest, the NASA site appears. With the NASA site PNG appearing on screen now, I'm going to zoom back, and I'm going to move the pivot from the center to the upper left-hand corner. And we can get that tool by hitting Y on the keyboard. If you hit Y, you'll see that the highlighted blue icon appears to be a box just to the left of a little camera icon. I'm going to click on the center point and drag it to the upper left-hand corner of that file. Once I've placed it there, I will go back to my Move tool by hitting V. We're going to drag that file so the corner of it is against the left-hand top and left edge of the actual iPhone interface edit we created. I'm now going to click on the file, start to drag to the right, and hold down the Shift key until it goes just off the interface. I'm going to hit P for position and drop the first keyframe. I'm going to advance the playback head to second number 8, essentially giving it 2 seconds. And once again, I'll click on it, dragging to the left, holding the Shift, place it back to that point of time. If I was to drag through my playback head now, the button comes on screen and it appears to be swept away by the NASA site picture. Now the next thing we want to do is we're going to scale it so much of the picture appears on the interface. I'm going to put my playback head at second number 10. And I'm going to extend the NASA site picture out past that point a bit. I'm now going to return my playback head to the 8-second point, because now we're going to introduce scale. I'll hit S on the keyboard, drop the first keyframe. I'll advance to second number 10, and I'll now hit the scale, and I'm going to reduce the scale of it to 70%. Once you've completed these steps, go to the PDF with the tutorials in it, go to CGPH 12, iPhone Add, Screen, Step 2, and start from second number 8 on to complete the interface for the phone.